Greetings everyone, this is Faculty of Psychology at SRN International School, Jagatpura, Jaipur, Rajasthan. I am so glad to have you all here today, and before I start the video, I would like to extend a warm welcome towards all of you. Now I am going to tell you that this video is about first chapter of psychology, class 11th. The name of the chapter is What is Psychology? I am going to give you a little introduction about the chapter. What is psychology? How do we define it? How did it emerge as a discipline? So basically, I am going to give you a basic introduction to the subject of psychology. So without any delay, let's start with the video. Alright, so here you can see that the question we have raised is what is psychology? So earlier, psychology is derived from two Greek words in particular. Psyche means soul and logos meaning science or study of a subject. Now, psychology earlier was a study of the soul or mind, but now because of the development in this field, because of the evolution that has been done in this field, psychology is defined formally as a science which studies mental processes, experiences, and behaviors in different contexts. Now, by different contexts, they mean in humans and as well as in animals. Alright, so now let's move on to the next topic, and in that I am going to explain you the definition in more detail. So let's start with that. The definition of psychology consists of three key words. First of them is mental processes. We use our mental processes when we think or try to solve a problem, to know or remember something. And I am going to tell you about two things. First is mental activities and the second one is neural activities. Now, what are mental activities? Activities such as when we try to remember something, when we try to learn something, we use our mental processes and these are called mental activities. For example, when I'm trying to solve a problem in mathematics, I'm using my mental activities. Now I'm going to talk about neural activities. Now, the meaning of neural activities is, you might have seen that when you have a problem in your head, or if you hit your head hard enough in an accident, you go to the doctor and they prescribe you an MRI for your head. So they put you in a machine where they take pictures of your brain, and you can see that there are some electrochemical signals are passing in your brain. These are called neural activities, and they both are mutually overlapping processes. That means that mental activities and neural activities are dependent. One cannot exist without the other, but they are not identical. Alright, now I'm going to tell you what is mind. So mind does not have a physical structure, and that is different from brain, because brain has a physical structure and a location, right? But the mind does not have a physical structure and it does not have a location. Mind emerges and evolves as our interactions and experiences develop. Alright, then we are going to talk about some examples of mental processes. Now, mental processes can be remembering, learning, knowing, perceiving. Feelings are of interest to psychologists. They study these processes to try to understand how the mind works and to help us improve the uses and applications of these mental capacities. I hope that you understood the topic mental processes very nicely. Now let's move on to the next keyword in the definition of psychology. The second key word in the definition of psychology is experiences. Now, experiences are subjective in nature. That means that they cannot be generalized, they are not common, they vary from person to person, and everyone have their own explanation of their experiences. We cannot directly observe or know someone else's experiences. Now, I'm going to explain this with an example. For example, I've been in a tsunami and I'm a victim of a natural disaster called tsunami. So, if I am, so in the past I've experienced that. Now I am out of that place and I am living my life very naturally. So people cannot look at me and see that this was my experience, right? So people cannot directly observe or know someone else's experience. I'm going to give you another example about a yogi who meditates. Only the person who meditates can understand that enlightenment or the high that you get from meditation or the peace that you get from meditation. Only the meditator can understand that, or a yogi can understand that. I cannot feel that experience by just looking at the yogi. So if I go and see a yogi and I'm just looking at a yogi, I cannot experience that calmness or peacefulness, right? So that is what I mean by this, that we cannot directly observe or know someone else's experience. Only the experiencing person can be aware or be conscious of his or her experiences. Thus, experiences are embedded in our awareness or consciousness. Experiences now are influenced by internal and external conditions of the experiencer. Now, with this, I'm going to explain you that our external and internal conditions also affect our experiences. For example, I am very tired today and I have to go somewhere very far and it's a very hot day and the bus that I'm taking is filled with people, right? It's completely houseful. So I'll be very agitated, I'll be very irritated because of the heat and because of the people around me. Also, I'm very tired, so I will not have a good experience of the journey. Now, if we take the same day, right? So let's take the same day. Let's just change some parts of it. Okay, so now I see that the external environment in the previous example, the external environment was not good and the internal environment was also not very good. Now let's change the internal environment. So I am not tired today. I am so happy. I want to go somewhere. Even though the bus is filled with people, it's a house full in the bus and the day is very hot, I will enjoy the ride because I have to go somewhere where I want to go, right? I am willing to do that, right? So, and that's why and also I'm fully rested. So that's why I will have a good experience, right? So we can say that both our internal and the external conditions also affect or influence our experiences. Now we are going to move to the third part of this definition. Now, the third part of this definition are behaviors. Behaviors are responses or reactions we make or activities we engage in. For example, if a dog is running after me, so what will I do? I will run to save my life or so that I don't get bit by the dog. So I saw the dog coming towards me and I ran. I started running. This was a reaction that I did or that I gave because of the situation that I'm in, right? So behaviors are responses or reactions that we make or activities we engage in. Right? Behaviors may be simple, complex, short, or enduring. They are there are two types of behaviors. First is overt. Now these behaviors can be outwardly seen or sensed by an observer. Someone from the outside can see my behavior, then that is overt behavior. For example, you are sitting in a class and via camera you are being observed, and the observer noticed that a boy was very sad and he started crying in the class. So this crying was a reaction to something that he was sad about, and this was observable by the cameras or the observer who was watching the boy via camera. So his behavior was overt behavior. Now we are going to talk about covert behavior. Now these are internal behaviors that is not observed by the observer. For example, while you play a game of chess, you can feel your hands twitching, you can feel your legs a little bit shaking, right? You're trembling from inside and you are nervous, but your opponent cannot sense that. You cannot let your opponent sense your nervousness, right? So these are some example of behaviors, both overt and covert. Now I am going to explain you how psychology developed as a discipline. Psychology as a discipline, it seeks to understand and explain how the mind works and how different mental processes result in different behaviors. Psychologists tried to minimize such biases in their explanation of behavior and experience in various ways. Some did by seeking to make their analysis more scientific and objective, so they moved to the scientific or psychology as a science to make the explanation of behavior more objective and scientific. Now others started to explain behavior from the point of view of the experiencing person because they think that subjectivity is a necessary aspect of human experience. In Indian tradition, self-reflection and analysis of our conscious experiences is held to be a major source of psychological understanding. On the other hand, when we talk about the Western psychologists, they have also begun to emphasize the role of self-reflection and self-knowledge in understanding human behavior and experiences. Alright, now let's move to the next part of this topic. Psychology as a discipline. Now psychology, though it is a very old knowledge discipline, is a very young science. The first laboratory of psychology was established in 1879 in Leipzig, Germany. Now, what kind of a science is psychology still remains a matter of debate, particularly because of the new interfaces of it that have emerged in recent times. Psychology is generally characterized as a social science, but it should not come to you as a surprise that not only in other countries, but in India also, it is a subject